line between sanity and insanity. Does it exist? Exactly where do we draw it, and what are the symptoms of either side of the line once you step over that boundary? So, sanity and insanity are all about perspective. When we look at these two sides of this line, we start to realize that there's a vast gray area between the two. It's about what we understand as an individual, about what we understand about the universe, and who we see ourselves as being in relation to the universe. Now, sanity is, level out behavior, the ability to see things as they are supposedly, and the consistency to exist within and as a part of society, that you can be a productive part, that you can contribute, that you can help other people, that you can work towards carving out a life for yourself in society. And insanity, skirting over that line to the other side, is not being able to really find balance within your life, within yourself, within your relationship to the universe, between your relationship to society and who you think you are or want to be. And it really feels as if, I've been on either side of this line. It really feels as if we are dancing across a border that is completely self-composed and self-understood. There is no external understanding that can tell you that you are sane or insane. And that's the key. That's the trick to it. But when we have the spiritual aspect to existence, that which is more subtle than what we can see materially, what we can see with our most used senses, I guess you could say, something that is not the sixth sense, we start to realize that the things that are beyond ourselves, that we don't know, can very much harm our ability to function if there is a connection to these forces that we simply don't have control over. The things that we don't know can very much have consequences. And the things that we do know might not be enough to protect us from the things that may assail us or do assail us, especially those of us who are, considered schizophrenic like myself. Now, when I first discovered I was schizophrenic, by being diagnosed and then medicated, I thought that everything that I saw was, every hallucination you could say, that I saw was completely false. And I didn't want to believe it was real. I didn't want to believe that there was this other dimension that I was seeing to reality, that there was something just below the surface or just above that I was kind of piercing. I didn't want to believe that because that's much harder to deal with than thinking that it just doesn't exist. Now, as I got older, and I was able to control this feeling, this, you could say, ability, it's ability that I don't really want, but as I learned to control this ability, through medication as well, because it kind of dimmed my senses, because my senses were just so peaked, and the amount of information my mind would take in was just so vast, and the rate at which I would think was just so sped up. The rate of my thoughts was extreme. And the medication did and does allow me to regulate these things so that I can function as a normal human being. But the more I researched it, schizophrenia, and tried to understand what I was experiencing through the spiritual understandings that I have researched and read about and practiced to varying levels of success. And I've always had success in spiritual rituals and spiritual meditations and spiritual divination. But the more I gained information about my connection to other realms, I started to realize that, okay, maybe what I saw and that I can see is still, if I focus, being medicated, then is more to do with something that actually might exist than something that definitely doesn't, because I didn't want to believe it existed. Now I'm starting to question and realize that there are realms just behind this reality, just above, below, around, in and out, that I was able to see, and I am able to see when I focus now, but I wasn't able to control it. I was not able to control my perception, my transdimensional perception, basically. Now that I can control it, it is something that is very enlightening, because I'm starting to realize that I can see beyond what most people would consider sane and normal human behavior. Now, does this mean that I'm completely close to the idea that maybe I'm just crazy and there's different levels of sanity and I'm low on the sanity scale, I guess you could say? No, I'm still open to the idea that I'm completely wrong about everything and everything is just hallucination, and even when I focus, it's convincing myself that these things do exist. I'm still open to that idea, but when I started to really understand the different dimensions, when I started to really understand how to connect to them and how to connect to these beings that exist in the different dimensions and how they desire to connect with us, that's when I started to really realize that the spiritual nature of humankind is sometimes tweaked towards the positive or sometimes negative, if you view it as a negative ability in certain individuals. And schizophrenia might be a balancing factor. It might be the balancing point to where you can, if controlled, you can choose to either perceive certain dimensions or perceive certain beings beyond yourself. And if it's not controlled, then it's a living hell, and I've experienced that, because you can't really zoom in onto this reality. You're just viewing a whole bunch of different realities at once. So, in conclusion, I'd like to say that the line between sanity and insanity has to do with perspective. It has to do with understanding exactly where you are and then willfully going towards a perception of different realms that you're actually working towards, and not just being imposed upon you. And then that's really the line. When you can gain the ability to work towards certain realms and perceive different things, then that's when you have control of your sanity. That's what sanity truly is: the ability to control what you see, and how you perceive it and when you perceive it. Now, insanity is when all of this is imposed upon you and you start to really see things that aren't there, because all of these different realms are crisscrossing and they're creating points of perception that you don't have control over. So you are in this constant haze of not understanding what's around you or who you are, or where your lines begin and where another person begins, or where you end and somebody else begins. And it can be very frustrating, because I feel like these different aspects of our being do exist in relation to when we're trying to exist within society, but they only exist at a lower magnitude. When you start to reach higher magnitudes of perception and existence, these lines start to blur, and so you have to gain control over it. Anyway, this has been a kind of a rant, definitely a rant, over the line between sanity and insanity. And I hope that this has been partially informative. If it has been, feel free to shoot that thumbs up down there. I really appreciate it. It helps out the channel. If you like this video at all and you want to comment on it, feel free to shoot it down in the comment section below. But thank you very much for watching, and I hope all of y'all have a great day.